Hello everyone. There was some problem in the connection and the settings of the camera, so maybe I was not audible and not visible. Please reconnect. Sorry for the inconvenience. I will wait 2 minutes because already four of the Vaidyas had joined, and presently I can see only one person has re-logged in. So I'll wait for 2 minutes and I'll start my session. Good morning and pranam. Today I am welcoming you to this session of Samhitokta Nari Pariksha Vigyan. And in the past 1 week, we have studied a lot about Nari Pariksha from my Guru, Acharya Vaidya Sanjay Kumar Chhaja sir, Vaidya Amit Pal sir, Vaidya Gautam Gunde sir. And so I'll start my session with Guru Vandana. Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Deva Maheshwara, Guru Sakshat Parabrahma, Tashmai Shri Guruve Namaha. The three eminent Nari Vaidyas, the Nari Pariksha practitioners, have enlightened us so much in the last 1 week. In the very first lecture only, Charja sir had mentioned that Nari Pariksha and rest of Ayurveda is a practice of Guru Shishya Parampara. It has gone from like people used to listen and learn the knowledge, and then eventually writing started, and everything was in a process of that the Shishyas learned directly from the Gurus. But it is so ancient that in the course of history there has been loss of so many slokas, and Sir has highlighted that instead of 1 lakh slokas of Agnivesh Tantra, now only 12,000 are available. So when so many ancient Shastras has emphasized and mentioned the vitality of Nari, the vitality that it is mentioned as Jiva Shakshini, that if a person is alive, that Saksha is given by Nari. So such a valid topic, it's not mentioned that cannot be. And in the very first aspect only, Sir tried to emphasize and grow the interest of everyone studying Nari Pariksha, so that we can get into wholehearted learning of learning Nari Pariksha. So he mentioned that there is some bhranti that the Brihatrais have not mentioned about Nari Pariksha. The Laghutrais and the later and the some Samhitas which are on the later day, they have mentioned, but then all the Vaidyas thus do not believe so much on Nari Pariksha because they take the Brihatrais as gold standard. But Sir emphasized that it is not in a such a way. There is mention of Nari, there is mention of Svarsha Vigyan, there is mention of Nari Pariksha in different aspects, in different chapters, related to different diseases. But it's only that it is sparsely mentioned, it is scattered. So, scientific evaluation, a scientific study, in-depth knowledge acquiring on this topic is very essential, so that we can develop belief of the system that Nari Pariksha can help us in diagnosing a disease, in understanding the problems of a patient, and also in dealing with the disease of the patient. Sir emphasized on the fact that many people say that you cannot get the same Nari Pariksha findings by concurrent study of two Vaidyas. But because people are used to testing in machines, like you are checking blood sugar in a glucometer, both the glucometers are giving 120 or 120 and 121 reading. People are used to that. So when two Vaidyas are doing Nari Pariksha on the same patient, they do not find the same results. But Sir says that because Nari Pariksha is based on Anuman Praman, and Anuman Praman is based on tarka and yukti. The tarka and yukti of two different people will be different. The two Vaidyas come from different understanding, different background. They are two different individuals, so their tarka and yukti is different. So their parinam, their understanding, their result will also be different. So that cannot negate that Nari Pariksha is not mainstream understanding and mainstream diagnostic procedure. It is not like that, because sir brings out the fact that 20,000 years ago, 20,000 BC, Rig Veda mentioned about the pulsation nature of Nadi, and also the fact that the person who is alive and the person who is dead was differentiated on the basis of the analysis of Nadi. Also, sir mentions that it is mentioned in Roman medical sciences as well, that someone who is pulsating, that person is alive. Someone not pulsating is dead. Then in Agnivesh Tantra, in Charak Samhita, there are many chapters which discuss about Nadi, Sparsha Vigyan, and also Nadi Sparsha Vigyan and Nadi and its related structures like Dhamani and Hriday. Sir mentions directly the Charak Samhita Sutrasthan first chapter, Charak Sutrasthan 30th chapter, Charak Indriyasthan 3rd chapter, Charak Vimansthan 5th chapter, Charak Siddhisthan 9th chapter, and various other aspects were also discussed in details in Charak Sharirsthan. So, when the acharyas are giving so much emphasis at various parts on Nadi, on its analysis, on Sparsha Vigyan, they must have mentioned, but in the absence of direct and in the absence of a chapter dedicated to Nadi Pariksha, maybe this Bhranti is occurring. Sir mentions that there is mention of Nadi Pariksha in other samhitas also, but due to the restricted acceptance, we are not practicing, people are not practicing it in a wide scale in today's era, in today's Ayurveda practice. Sir, in the very first class, mentioned about Hriday and its Dash Dhamani function, and how the structures are mentioned in Charak Shadisthan 30th chapter. That Hriday, the Mahamul of 10 Dhamanis, that is it is like a confluence of many rivers. It is like when many rivers are joining into one sea, and they have correlated Hriday and its 10 Dhamanis to this aspect, that it is like a confluence of rivers. It is the Jiva Vahini, it is the Jiva Shakshini. So they have given the importance of Nadi. They have mentioned that it is like a center of the city. It is where all the Dhamanis and Shiras come and join, and they derive the nurturing bhav padarthas from the Hriday, and they have established and they have mentioned how this nurturing aspect of the whole body is circulated to every part of the body. Sir mentions the sloka of Charak Sharirsthan, where it has mentioned that Mahamul, Mahamul, and it's like they have already said that it is Maha, it is very important. And in the Charak Sharirsthan first chapter 8th number slok, it is mentioned that the Hriday is the root, the Mahamul of the 10 Dhamanis, and these Dhamanis carry the Oja, which is the nourishing aspect of all the 7 Dhatus and the Oja, till the end of the Shrotas, till the whole body, to the all of parts of the Shadangas, and they work in a pulsating manner, vidhamyante, that is mentioned in the sloka, and samantata, in a synchronized regular fashion, in a continuous fashion. So it is said that 10 dhamanis connected to the Hridaya. It is carrying the nourishing part of the seven dhatus and the oja to the shadangas, to every part of the body in a synchronized manner, in a pulsating manner. This is found mentioned in Charak Sharir Sthan. Then it is mentioned that how to and where to we can find this nadi. This in the Shrota Viman it was mentioned that the nari proceeds, then the dhamani, and then at the end of the dhamani there are the shrotas, the various tissue nourishing avayavas, the shrotas. Okay, so they are mentioning it so in so much details, and if you are mentioning that something it is coming out, it is giving nourishment to the whole body, and you are also mentioning how to do the analysis of the patient, that is how to check the rogi pariksha, darshan, sparshan and prashna. In the very first chapter of Charak Sutrasthan it is mentioned about the importance of rogi pariksha and how to do darshan, sparshan and prashna. Darshan we see, prashna we ask the patient, and sparshan is also emphasized. So when you touch a pulsating nadi, you can feel the pulsation. It is synchronized, it is continuous, and it is transmitting the nourishing elements to every part of the body. So, if we can understand how this pulsation is happening by our regular practice, definitely we can understand the rogi in a better way. This is how Sir tried to explain to us that we should believe in checking nari, we should believe in understanding nari pariksha, and then we can understand rogi to a great detail, and it is not beyond the scope of the brihat race. It is included within the scope of the brihat race and the principles of Ayurveda. Sir mentions that the way the reception and perception of Gyan happens, like Indriya Arthas, Indriyas, Buddhi, Man, Atma. If this connection, the connection of all these is uninterrupted and natural, then only a proper Gyan can be found. And Sparsha Vigyan is an aspect of Indriyas of the Vaidya as well. Sparsha Gyan is the aspect of understanding of the Indriya of the Vaidya, of the knowledge that is given up by the Sparsha Indriya of the Rogi as well, or the person who is undertaking Nari Pariksha as well. So, if the Indriyas of the Vaidya is trained in such a manner that the Vaidya's Indriyas can perceive the knowledge given out by the Rogis or the Pariksha, the person who is undergoing Pariksha, if the Sparsha Indriya of the Vaidya is able to catch that knowledge by his trained Sparsha Indriya, then he can evaluate this Gyan and help in understanding what is happening in the Sharir of the Roga. This then Sir mentioned that the knowledge of the condition and state of Shadanga is perceivable by Sparsha Gyan of the Dhamanis that are connected to Hridaya in a pulsating, synchronized manner. Whatever I have previously just said, and the Mula, which is Mahat, which is known as Hridaya, thus Dhamanis originate from there and spread to the whole body and carry Oja and other Dhatu precursors in a pulsating and synchronized manner to the end of every tissue, every part of the Shadangas. And this, so we have to train our, we as Vaidyas, we have to train our Indriyas in a way that we can perceive, we can receive the knowledge that is coming out, that the Nadi of the Rogi is trying to express to us. We have to develop this power in us. Then Sir goes ahead to mention where Panchabhuta aspect and Sparsha Vigyan has been mentioned in the Charak Samhita. It is mentioned that by Sparsha Vigyan we can understand the presence and the gunas of Panchabhutas. All the Panchabhutas can be perceived through Sparsha Gyan. It is mentioned. And the three doshas are based on Pancha Mahabhut only. So we can thus say that three doshas which are based on Pancha Mahabhutas can easily be perceived by the Sparsha Indriya, by the Sparsha Vigyan. It can be easily understood. So if we can perceive the state of Pancha Mahabhutas as mentioned by Charak Acharya, then why cannot it be correlated with the state of the three doshas? This was where Sir ended the first class, and then Sir continued in the third class, in the next class, about the Sparshanindriya being Vayu Pradhan and other, but it is also mentioned that other Mahabhutas can also be perceived by the Sparshanindriya. So, if Sir gave the example of the ancient times when a person is alive or dead was checked by placing a thread in front of the nostril of the person. So it is like the exhaled air is touching, it's doing sparsha of the thread, and then this is giving gyan. So sparsha gyan was important in the early era, and so we should not think that it was not important, and this is not a scientific analysis, and we should go deeper into studying these slokas which have been mentioned by Sir. Even though Atma is all over the body, it can be perceived by Sparsha Indriya only. Like if the Atma is present all over the body, but if at some point the Atma and its connection with the Indriyas does not happen, then knowledge will not be there. And if the Atma is not connected with the body, then the Atma cannot, the Atma is now liberated. Atma is joined with the body, and then only that person can get Sparsha Gyan, and then only that person's analysis can be done by Sparsha Gyan. That was highlighted in Charak Samhita and also in Chakrapani Tika. Even though the Atma is all pervasive, the perception of Vedana was highlighted in Chakrapani Tika. Vedana is possible only if there is Sparsha Gyan with Atma. So now the aspect and understanding of Vedana came up. In common understanding, we think that Vedana is pain. But in Ayurveda Granthas, it seems like Vedana can be of two types. A pleasurable Vedana and a not so pleasurable or dukkha producing Vedana. So they directly say that Vedana can be understood by Sparsha Vigyan, and Sukha and Dukkha are classified as health and disease condition in Ayurveda. So if Sukha Yukta Vedana and Dukkha Yukta Vedana can be analyzed by Sparsha Vigyan, so definitely we can understand the Sukha status or the healthy status of the body, and also the Dukkha status or the disease state of the body by Sparsha Vigyan. Now, it is like Sir said that every physician checks pulse. They maybe they check rhythm, they check rate, they check volume. But in the Nadi Pariksha of Ayurveda, the in-depth understanding has to be achieved, and this ability of understanding is only dependent on the expertise of the Vaidya. Like he gave the example of musician, like someone like me cannot understand what is the saregama pa of a tune, but someone who is the expert musician, just listening to the music they can understand what is the swaralipi. So that way a, normal pulse that is going on in the body can be just beats per minute for someone, but some Vaidya who has trained himself or herself in Nari Pariksha can get the information regarding every aspect of the body from that pulsating Nari, which for someone else is just beats per minute. So, Sir has emphasized on the fact that Vaidyas get trained in Nari and they practice it in their regular practice. Then, about the Sharir and the Atma, Atma is beyond Sukha and Dukha, but the Sharir which has Atma can only feel this. This can be evaluated by Sparsha Indriya of the Vaidya. It is mentioned in Charak Sharir Sthan. So, and also there is mentioned that the malas of the dhatus, like the hair, the nail, if they are cut, we do not feel any pain, because these hairs and nails, they do not have any sparsha indriyas, right? So there is no sensation felt. So it is well established by now to every one of us that sparsha indriya has the ability to give knowledge to us about the disease condition of a person or the health condition of a person. It is only up to the Vaidyas to get expertise and practice this knowledge, practice this technique to get and receive this knowledge which is given out by the Nari of the diseased person. The process of evaluation of the guna is the function of Vigyan and thus called Sparsha Vigyan, because in Nari Pariksha, in the Sparsha Vigyan, we are analyzing the gunas, and analysis of guna is known as Vigyan. So we definitely can draw to the conclusion that Nari Pariksha is a Vigyan, Sparsha Gyan is a Vigyan, and it is not that it is unscientific. It is definitely scientific. We should practice it. We should study. Then there was mention of Hridayashrit aspect. That means that it is mentioned that does that mean that the whole body is Hridayashrit? No, it doesn't mean that the whole body is Hridayashrit. It is saying that both the body and the Hriday are interdependable. When the Sadanga and Avyavas are in Prakrit Avastha, the function of the Hriday will be normal. And when the Shadanga and the Avyavas are in Vikrit Avastha, the functioning of the Hriday will be abnormal. Same ways, if there is Abhighat of the Hriday, then the rest of the body will not be functioning nicely. So the correlation and the relation between the Hriday and the Shadangas was well established in Chakrapani Tika. Atma and Man are the site of Hriday, such that Sukha Dukha is felt in the heart. And Ayurveda, Arogya and Anarogya are called Sukha and Dukha. So, Gyan can only be achieved if there is the interaction of Atma, Mana, Indriya, Indriyartha. And this can happen, this Gyan can only received if there is the calmness in the mind. And by calmness in the mind, it is related to the heart as well. So, like we find that stress impacts our bodies in different ways. So, if the stress is impacting our heart, our mind is getting affected, then that person cannot receive the Gyan of Sparsha Gyan. And also, if the mind of a person is affected, then the person's Hriday will have some abnormalities, and indirectly his or her body will have some abnormalities. And also, if the body has some abnormalities, then the Hriday and in turn the mind will have some abnormalities. So, this is well established that by understanding the Hriday, which is the origin of the Das Dhamanis and the pulsation of these Das Dhamanis, we can definitely get information regarding the functioning of the body, the health status of the body. So, Sir ended this week's lecture by saying that importance of Hriday, importance of the Dhamanis originating from the Hriday and their interdependence in relation with Chadanga, their relation with disease and health condition, their relation with symptoms and nature, relation with Panchamahabhutas and doshas was described. I have well established the correlation of all these in last few minutes, what Sir had discussed in the last 1 week. Now I am coming to the summarization of Vaidya Amit Pal Sir's class on Ravankrit Nari Pariksha. Sir said that the Samhita's documentation have been lost, but Ravankrit Nari Pariksha has many adhyayas preserved. But as it is well preserved, there is a bhranti that this person, this Ravanacharya, may not be the Treta Yuga Ravanacharya. So there is a bhranti. But again, Sir informed the initial slokas, the Mangalacharan, and the starting of the chapters, how it is, how Ravan's family has been mentioned in the slokas. So Sir said that it is well understood that it is the same Ravanacharya of Treta Yuga. Nonetheless, when we are accepting the Kumaratantra of this Ravanacharya, we are accepting the Bheshajya Kalpana and the aspect of Dravya Guna of this Ravanacharya. Why we are not readily accepting the Nari Pariksha that has been mentioned by Ravanacharya? Ravanacharya has mentioned Nari Pariksha in a bit of more expanse, in a more concise and in a more not in a scattered manner. He has mentioned all the Nari Pariksha related aspects together. So why we are not ready to accept this knowledge which is there? Because we are basing Kumar Vritya on Ravankrit Nari Vigyan only. Ravan Samhita only is Kumar Vritya is functioning. So why we are not ready to accept Ravankrit Nari Pariksha? So Sir said that we should go ahead and study this and understand its applicability, which is still pervasive even today. If Sir discussed 2 slokas of Ravankrit Nari Pariksha, and those slokas, when Sir went in details, we can understand that that is applicable and we can understand those aspects even today. So definitely, as it has stood the test of time, definitely it is a Vigyan, it is a science, because unless it is a science, unless it is a truth, unless it is a correct understanding, it cannot stand the test of time. So in the very first sloka, it is mentioned that the diseased person or the state of the health or disease of a person can be evaluated at 8 parts: Nari, Mutra, Malang, Jivha, Shabda, Sparsha, Dik, Akriti. So when mentioning about 8 places, Nari has been mentioned at the very first. So it is a usual practice that we mention the most important aspect in the very first part. In the very first instance, we mention what is the main thing. So if Nadi is not a main thing in understanding a diseased person, why will it come and the very first, as the very first word in the list of examinations for the diseased? Yes, we find in details about other 7 disease Rogi Pariksha aspects. We do not find directly about Nari, but that doesn't mean we negate this Nari Pariksha aspect. Then he mentions the second sloka, where it is mentioned that in a patient in a rugna who is unconscious, who is murchit, who is in delirium state, who is in almost coma, or someone who is mook, who cannot talk or who cannot talk cohesively, in that person, Acharya Ravan has said that Nari Pariksha can give us a lot of knowledge regarding what is happening in the person's body, what is the precursor or what is the pre-existing thing that happened in that person's body. Like he mentions almost the state of a patient who is in ICU. So he tells that Nari Pariksha is very helpful in understanding such a kind of patient. So Amit Pal sir brought out the point that when we are accepting Nari Pariksha in a person who is not able to talk, why are we not accepting Nari Pariksha in a person who is able to talk? Because from the words of the patient, we are getting some light upon his or her condition. Then when we are observing the nari, we can get further more information regarding what is happening in the rugna's body, and thus both the signs and symptoms can help us to reach a better conclusion regarding the understanding of the disease or the health condition of that person. So we should practice nari in our regular practice. In the next part of this Samhitokta Nari Pariksha, we learn from Vaidya Gautam Gunde sir, and he was highlighting whatever aspects they were mentioned in Sharangadhar Samhita, and also two tikas of Sharangadhar Samhita, Deepika Tika and Gurartha Deepika Tika. Gautam Gunde sir mentioned the time zone and the era of Sharangadhar Acharya. He mentioned that during the Mughal period, at that time Acharya Sarangadhar was practicing, and at that time the Unani medicine had also come up, and Unani medicine has lot of emphasis on nerves pariksha. So when a person is practicing in such an era where some practice is prevalent, that person will definitely learn about it, and the sthan, the kal and the contemporary practices of chikitsa will definitely impact that person's practice. Like in today's era, if some person with a fracture comes to us, will we not go for an x-ray? Or if someone comes with head injury, will we not go for a CT scan? We definitely will. CT scan or x-ray is not mentioned in our text, but as it is available and as it is helping us to understand in depth about the patient, then why will not we be accepting it? That's way Sharangadhar Acharya also accepted and took knowledge of it. But the important thing is that where the Gautam ji also highlighted that Sharangadhar Acharya did not deviate from the principles of Ayurveda, and we as modern era Ayurvedic Vaidyas, we should not also deviate from the basic principles of Ayurveda, from the dosha analysis, the Agni Pariksha, from the Agni analysis. We should not deviate from that. And if we do not deviate from this, the dosha analysis, the Agni analysis, and the Panchabhuta analysis, we will definitely get success, and we can benefit, and also our patients will benefit from our approach. So this was the starting point of sir's lecture. Then he came up with the mention that the chronology and the techniques that Sharangadhar Acharya mentioned may be different, but the principles did not differ. He emphasized on the aspect that it is the touch, the supportive touch is very effective in giving assurance to a patient, to a person who is suffering. So if such aspect, the touch, is so important, it has so much impact, definitely we should get mastery on this sparsha indriya of us, the Vaidya should get the mastery or get proper training on his or her Sparsha Indriya to benefit the patient in rog analysis. Gautamji emphasized that the Vaidyas who treat the patient as per Dosha Dhatu Mala Avalokan, Nari Pariksha is relevant to them. He mentions that Sharangadhar Acharya has divided his Samhita in 3 parts, and in the 3rd chapter of the Purvardha only he has mentioned about Nari Pariksha and other Parikshas. So definitely Sharangadhar Acharya had lot of faith and lot of understanding and had lot of faith and had lot of importance, gave lot of importance to Nari Pariksha in the understanding of the Rog and Rogi. In the first slok, as discussed, what do we find? We find where to do Nari Pariksha. In the wrist and the base of the thumb, where the artery is there, the dhamani is there, the Jiva Shakshini Nari is there, we can find Nari in this place. Then there is mention of the movement, fullness and expanse of the Nari. We have, the Acharya says that we have to understand and study these things in details, in depth, to get the information which is being given out by the Nari in its Dhaman Kriya. Then it is also mentioned in this sloka only that this knowledge is only effective to a Kaya Chikitsak, the Chikitsak who bases his treatment on Agni Chikitsa. Then Gautamji mentions the description given in Ardhyamal's Deepika Tika. He mentions that evaluation of peripheral circulation and the Jivanari, its evaluation is mentioned in the Ardhyamal Deepika, where they are describing about Dhaman Kriya, Dhamani. So it tells us the status of the body of the person who is unable to talk, who is murchit, in confusion status, who is sattvahin, and in the Prakoshtha, in the Bhajya Bhag, and in the line with Madhyama and Anamika. Here the Acharya Ardhyamal mentions it is in line of Madhyama and Anamika. And also Acharya Ardhyamal mentions that where not to do Nari Pariksha or when not to do Nari Pariksha. Just after taking bath, just after taking food, when hungry, when thirsty, when exposed to heat, when exerted or after exercise or coming from travel. So we know that all these aspects, whatever mentioned where Nari Pariksha should not be done, they do create some temporary imbalance in our body. So if we do the Nadi Pariksha at that time, then there can be discrepancies. The actual condition of the patient may not be found out. So the Acharyas have mentioned that you should not do the Nadi Pariksha in these conditions. You should do after some time to understand what is the actual condition of the Rugna. Then in Gurartha Deepika Tika, it is mentioned that Manda, Sthira and Chala qualities of the Nadi is to be found out, is to be tested to understand depth knowledge of the body of the patient. Then in the next part, Acharya has said that the result of the Nari Pariksha is a lot dependent on what is the practice of the Vaidya. If the Vaidya is practicing based on Dosha Dhatu, then that person can correlate it in the treatment modalities, and then the Vaidya can get success through Nari Pariksha in treatment. Gautamji says, found out and informed us that there is no exact mention of where to do Nari Pariksha in Sarangadhar Samhita. Exactly how to locate the Nari, it is not mentioned. But Sharangadhar Acharya might have thought that understanding Jiva Shakshini, it is the very basic for the Vaidya who is doing analysis, who is treating the patient, who is understanding if the person is alive or dead. So the Vaidya must be knowing where to check Jiva Shakshini. So maybe he has not mentioned where to check the Jiva Shakshini Nari. In the third sloka, Acharya has mentioned the nature of the Nari Gati, which indicates the prakop of the dosha, like Jaloka and Sarpagati in Vatanari. In case of Pitta prakop, Kaka and Manduka. In case of Sleshma prakop, Hamsa and Paravat. These gatis have been mentioned in the third sloka of Sharangadhar Samhita. These gatis which have been described are based on Upaman, and Vaidya Gautam ji described about the Vata Prakopit Nari Gati. So in it he said that it is the Gati of the Jaloka or the Swarpa, like a snake or a leech. It does not leave the surface of the ground when it is moving. It is moving in a tangential manner, but it does not leave the ground. So that is the identifying point of a Vata Gati Nari. And also it is that it is the pulsation is not even every time. It is different, because if someone has seen the movement of a snake, every turn is not equal. Some turns are big, some turns are small. So that way the Vatanari also, the pulsation is not equal. It is not going in a straight line, it is going in tangential manner, but it is not leaving the base as well. So that is the identifying point of Vatanari. Then Sharangadhar Acharya mentioned about the identification of this Vata dosha prakop in this manner, but Acharya did not mention about the pressure, or the how much pressure has to be applied, or what is, if there is any level where it has to be checked. But it is understandable that if the Vaidya is able to understand the Jiva Sakshini, if the Vaidya, if he or she has been declared as Vaidya, has got the Sikriti that this person is Vaidya, he must be knowing how to distinguish between dead and alive, and distinguishing dead and alive was from Jiva Shakshini, and so that person must be able to locate Nari. So it is mentioned. So in this part, to mention that it is only mentioned how the Nari Gati will be. The position has not been mentioned here by Sharangadhar Acharya. Then Nari analysis gives us information regarding Vata, Pitta and Kapha status. And from the Prashna analysis, from the Prashna aspect of Rogi Pariksha also, we can find information regarding what is happening in the body. But in some situations there appears confusion, like the hetu is of Pitta, but the whatever complaints the patient is giving, that is of Kapha or Vata. So at that time, if the Vaidya is able to check Nari, then the Vaidya can avoid this confusion and get into that moment, at that present moment when the patient has come to the Vaidya for treatment, the dosha status can be understood and proper treatment can be planned. Thus, the practice and understanding of the Nari and the understanding of the dosha status based on Nari needs to be gained so that we can benefit our patients. This was the last part of this week's lectures. I hope I could do justice to all the three Vaidyas who had imparted us knowledge. I hope that next time this kind of technical problem will not occur and we can start the class on time. Sorry for the inconvenience. Have a good day. practice Ayurveda. Namo Namah.